Well, I think that this last trip, this last game, our players really managed a lot of things right. Difficult circumstance playing on the road anytime you're in the SEC, especially with the weather conditions that we had, playing in a place that, we'd never been in before. I was really pleased with the energy and the intensity and the focus that we came out and started the game with. And I think it's pretty obvious that when we have a high level of focus and attention to detail, we execute well and we play well. And when we don't, we can become pretty average. And that was kind of the situation in this game. We were dominating the game and had a break, and came out and sort of didn't play as well during that break and got outscored 10-0 and let the other team back in the game. So, the whole emphasis is on, playing to a standard of excellence, having the right energy, the right focus, because when we have that, we play pretty well. And, we got things to correct on both sides of the ball. And we'll certainly, work on those things this week. We had some special teams, errors in the game that it's not all just the obvious ones. We drop a punt snap that was a good snap. We give up a kickoff return where we don't execute properly in the coverage. We field the ball on the 4-yard line on a punt. We bring it out 5 or 6 yards deep in the end zone. I mean, judgments, decisions, specialists, all have to execute, and we've got to do a better job of that. We had some guys that played extremely well in this game. I think the entire offensive line probably played pretty well, but, Barrett Jones, Eddie Lacy, TJ Yeldon, those guys are the offensive players, and Barrett, I think, was the honorable mention or something, or, for the conference. And, C.J. Mosley and D. Milner on defense, and C.J. was the conference player of the week. Landon Collins, Brent Callaway, and Jeremy Shelley on special teams. So, injury updates, everybody's okay. AJ's okay. He's got a bruised knee. He's still sore. He will try to do some things in practice today. Christian Jones has an ankle sprain. He's day-to-day. But everybody else is, Eddie Lacy is okay. Everybody else is okay. We got our nicks and bruises like everybody does at this time of the year, but we just need to manage through that and do the best we can to prepare, for this game. And I think, games like this game is more about the rivalry and less about people's record. Tennessee has a really, really good offensive team. It's always a challenge to play on the road, and this is certainly a challenging place to play. But, they have one of the best offensive teams in the country. Statistically, they've got 2 great receivers who are some of the top receivers in our conference. They have a very, very good quarterback who's done a fantastic job for them this year. They've got a big offensive line. They've been able to create balance on offense. And, they've played well on defense at times, and have shown they have the capabilities and ability to do that. They're a very well coached team. Derek's done a very good job there, and very good on special teams. So this is a very challenging game for us, and we continue to try to. This game means a lot to a lot of people. Certainly, it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to us. And I think our players will, work hard this week to try to get ready to play their best football.
Coach, I have 2. The first one, late in the game, you had a personal foul against LaMichael Fanning. Have you looked at that tackle? Has anybody said anything from the league?
Right. Well, I think this is a young player who's excited about getting in the game, who makes a very, very poor decision and a judgment on, making that play. And it's something that we don't condone here. It's not how we want our players to play. I think he understands that what he did was not done in the right way in terms of being a strong competitor. And we are managing internally things for him to do to make better choices and decisions in the future. And I think with all young people, when they make mistakes, that's what you really want to try to do. But He has apologized, written letters of apology to the player and the coach. I talked to Gary yesterday about it. He understands our position on it, and there's other things that are being done internally in the program, and we just kind of take it from there.
And the follow-up, it seemed like the pass rush against Missouri was pretty good. Could you talk about Adrian Hubbard in particular and how he's come along this season?
Well, Adrian's done a really good job, and Missouri's a very difficult, scheme. They take big splits sometimes, which, I think, sort of helps the pass rushers at times, especially if you're running games. But, I think Adrian has gotten more and more confident in what he's supposed to do, and he's certainly got the ability to rush off the edge and make plays, and we're pleased and happy with the progress that he's made this year and the production that he's been able to come up with.
Coach, just want to know how Dion Ballou graded out for the game and your thoughts on his performance coming back from the shoulder injury.
Dion did fine in the game. He played well in the game, and like all the players in the game, there's things that they could do better, but we were pleased that he got through the game and didn't have any, further problems physically. And hopefully he'll be able to do a little bit more and get a little stronger this week.
Your defense is leading the nation in a bunch of categories again. But from your standpoint, what have they done well, given that they had some new guys in different roles?
Well, it's been a hard-working group, and they've had a really good attitude about, what they want to try to do. And, I still think there's a lot of areas that we need to improve on. And, we're going to be challenged in a way that we've never been challenged, by the quality of offensive team that we're playing this week and their capabilities, in the passing game, as well as the balance they have in running the ball. So we're going to need to continue to improve, and they're going to need to continue to improve and play well as a group to be able to have success against this kind of offensive team.
After the game, you mentioned that you took the blame for not getting the intensity up after the rain delay. So I'm just wondering, when players make mistakes, they have you to answer to, and they have consequences. But who keeps you on your toes, and is that something that's more internal?
Well, I tried to fire myself this week, but
is it you? Is it internal, or is it someone else that helps you?
Well, look, when we were in the locker room, you can only go on what you see. We had told the players before, because we anticipated that this might happen, this is exactly how we were going to handle a rain delay. And they handled it well in the locker room. I mean, we had great focus, great attention to detail. I mean, we were going over all the things like it was halftime, and everybody had the right eyes, right look in their eye, and all that kind of thing. So, but obviously, we didn't come out and play with the same kind of energy and intensity, which is, probably difficult, especially with the circumstances in the game as they were. And then when you take a shot, as soon as you go out there and they had a kickoff return for a touchdown, we didn't respond to that very well either. All right, so there was a combination of things. I'm responsible for it. I need to do a better job of it. If you have any ideas what I can do to myself, I'd be glad to do it. I feel bad about it. I never want to, anytime our team goes out there and I don't think they're playing the way they should, then I'm constantly searching for what I could have done better, what we could have done better to, help put them in a better position.
Coach, wanted to ask you about one of your former players, Darrington Cinnamore at Tennessee. He's leading them in TFLs, even though he's only made 3 starts. When you see him now, does he look like a better player than when you had him, or does it look about?
Well, he was a good player when he was here, and we're happy that he's doing a good job and having success, and I hope he's doing what he needs to do off the field and in school. And his problems here were not relative to being a football player, so it had nothing to do with pass rush or sacks or any of that. So,
Coach, a couple of questions if I could. You've talked about Vinny Sinceri before, but he's a kid that seems to always be in the right place. How much do you attribute that to just he's been around football, his father has given him constant knowledge about that, Can you talk a little bit about how that helps him be in the right place at the right time?
Well, Vinny's a very instinctive player. He's a very bright guy. I think football is really important to him, so he works hard at it all the time. He loves to play, but he's actually playing a new position here. He had never played defensive back before, and he's really worked hard at becoming the kind of disciplined, eye control player that you need to be when you play in the secondary, and I think that's one of the things that he's made the most progress on, and I think that's helped him continue to develop and play well for us.
He had an interception in the Arkansas game, and I think when our cameras came along, you were quite excited about that. I don't know if you actually knew that play was coming in that made you excitement, or it was the relationship that you have with he and his family. Can you talk about that relationship and what that means to you?
Right. Well, I really have a lot of respect for, Sal, the entire family, certainly Vinny. But, sometimes when you work on something and it happens in a game like you worked on it and a guy makes a play, you get excited about that, and, that's kind of what happened on that play. So I'm always excited when we get an interception. So, and I'm always disappointed if we throw one. So, but anyway.
You're midway through the regular season now. What kind of grades would you give the offense, defense, and special teams, and where are there areas for improvement?
Well, I don't really grade them. I just focus on, things that we need to do better. And I think the biggest, thing that we've had to work on is, some of the players that we've lost, especially on special teams, has really sort of affected the continuity that we have on special teams. And we had to move guys around and shift, and you really kind of lose the cumulative effect of the experience that you gain from week to week to week, when you have to do that. So that's something that we're working hard on, to get those players enough knowledge and experience to be able to go out there and execute and do well at those positions. That's one of the challenging things that we have to do, and I just think on offense and defense we need to play, with more consistency. Play at a high level all the time, play to a standard all the time, which is what I continue to harp about, so that, we're going to give ourselves the best opportunity to be successful.
Also, Sal Sincera used to be here and he's there. Lance Thompson used to be there and he's here. What's the dynamic? Is there an advantage, a disadvantage, or the knowledge of personnel and schemes?
Well, I don't know that there's an advantage or disadvantage. They probably know. I coached with Derek for 7 years. I think they kind of know what we do, and we kind of, can see that they're doing a lot of the stuff that we do, especially on defense. So I don't know if there's an advantage or disadvantage. The advantages are created by the players and their execution, and getting them ready to go out there and be able to execute well in the situation, because you never know what the other team's going to do. Even if you know what they do, you don't know when they're going to do it. So you have to respond and react, properly on whichever side of the ball, or special teams, or whatever the circumstance and situation is in the game.
I was just thinking, with so many young guys on defense, is there an area or an element to that unit that has come on maybe faster than you would have thought at the start of the year?
Well, I don't look at this like you all look at it. So, where we're ranked in defense or anything doesn't really matter to me. I mean, I look at how we play, the mistakes that we make, the things that we need to get better on. I'm concerned about covering the people that we play the next game, playing well in the next game, because none of that stuff matters if you don't play well in the next game. So the challenge for us is the next game. And that's what I'm focused on, and that's what I'm looking at. And, that's what our entire staff is trying to do, and I think that needs to be the focus of our players. You start feeling good about where you are because you won the last tournament. That don't mean you're going to win the next one. And you start feeling entitled and you don't prepare the right way to do the right things, then you don't play as well. So our focus is on what we need to do to play well in this game. None of that other stuff matters. It only matters that the end. You know, what was the whole body of work that you could do on a consistent basis. And none of the rest of it matters. So, and we're going to play a lot better teams and a lot better offensive teams in the future, and we're going to be challenged in different ways. And I'm concerned about reacting to those challenges properly, not what we've done last week or the week before. So I'd appreciate it if we don't have to talk about that anymore, where we're ranked or what we're doing or what we did. I'm kind of looking at what we're going to do. That's okay.
Cyrus Jones obviously came in when Kristen Jones went out. Do you do anything different this week at that position to have a little more depth?
Well, we only have what we have, you know. We don't have a waiver wire. We can't pick up anybody. I was trying to check for it on my desk this morning. I couldn't find it. So we got the players that we have. It's, you know, we've lost quite a few players at that position. So it's going to create opportunities for other players to step up and play well.
I just wanted to ask about Tennessee's offensive line. They've only given up 3 sacks. Seem to have developed a pretty good running game. What do you see from those guys that makes them tough?
Well, they're big. You know, they're very physical. They've got, you know, 3 or 4 guys that have played a lot of football and are really experienced. This is by far the best offensive line we've played against all year long. I think they do a really good job with their protection schemes. Make it difficult to pressure you. Maybe a little different than they have been in the past. They're a lot more protection conscious. And, you know, that's keeping the quarterback from getting hit much, and he's pretty smart about getting rid of the ball and not getting hit. So I think all those things contribute to the offensive line does a good job, but I think all those things contribute to them not getting sacked a lot.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.